rise. Just wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you everybody for coming. We've been working closely with ACI, Larry, Steve, and Steve approached us about kind of doing something on the Hill. We jumped the opportunity that we give the opportunity to get the word out, and they're doing tremendous work on broadband issues. Like everybody in this room, we're anxiously waiting what the FCC has to say. So, that being said, we'll turn it over to you guys, and appreciate you making the effort and everybody coming today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate the help you've given us, and thank Representative Blackburn for providing us the room today. We saw last night's speech, State of the Union, theme, the economy, right there in the Post. And here's the Times, jobs program. So it's a big issue, and what we wanted to talk about today here is in light of Congress's instruction to the FCC in development of a national broadband plan. There's also a lot of other discussion. We have a faltering economy on the one side and unemployment at 10%, and that doesn't even take into account the number of workers who left the workforce just the last period. We saw 600,000 workers leave the workforce, so they're not being counted in the unemployment rate. If you added them back in, that's another 0.2%. So we have a serious issue, and we're trying to balance at one time stimulus versus debt, and at the same time there's a whole discussion of net neutrality, the idea of trying to have this open and free, neutral internet, which some would suggest that impose regulations on the carriers. And so what we wanted to look at here was, well, what in terms of the engine of growth of a lot of the economy. The fact is, if you look at the input that IT and broadband has on the economy today, for 2% of IT manufacturing, it just represents, again, 2% of GDP, but it contributes about 30% to the growth of GDP. When you look at inflation, inflation is 1% lower than it would have been because of the fact that IT services continue to fall. There are output increases, but prices decreased. One study suggests that nearly all the productivity growth in the economy is attributable to IT. Another factor is the idea that broadband could create about $500 billion of consumer welfare benefits, and in addition to that, studies have shown that they would create about 1.2 million jobs. Now, there are various studies out there, but they're all saying that IT and broadband services are a real engine, growth engine to the economy. And today we're going to have Dr. Larry Darby talk about a study that looks at where the growth is happening in these IT services. And let me tell you just a word about that, about Dr. Darby. Dr. Darby, long history from the Hill to the White House. He was a former chief economist and bureau chief at the FCC. He has taught at GW, New York Law School, George Mason, Temple, and so on. He has a couple of various projects he works on, both internationally and domestically, and he's also a senior fellow for the American Consumer Institute. My pleasure to introduce Dr. Larry Darby.
Steve, thanks for the introduction.